and welcome back to another episode of the Worship Ministry Training Podcast. My name is Alex Infiegin, your host. If you're new to the podcast, we exist to give you, worship leaders, practical training and tools that you need to succeed, excel, and feel confident in this calling that God has placed in your hands. He wants you to do a good job. And some of us don't know how. We haven't been trained. And so this podcast has for 6 years been training worship leaders in the practical tools that you need to succeed. So if you're new, hit subscribe so you can get free content delivered to you monthly. Also, look through all the old episodes because I try to stick to one topic per episode, and I try to be as in-depth and practical as possible so that you can actually implement the things that you learn immediately into your ministry. So with all that said, welcome, and I'm excited about today's episode because it's actually a role reversal. I'm usually the one interviewing people, but on this episode, I am being interviewed by Casey Klosik from the Local Worship Project. And that's a new podcast, new YouTube channel that you should check out and see what he's doing to equip worship leaders. You might be helped by that. But he's interviewing me about how to be a healthy worship leader. How can we be healthy? And I'm by no means an expert in this, but I will say that your health will directly impact the health of your ministry. If you're healthy, your team has a chance of being healthy. If you're unhealthy, your team has no chance at all to be healthy because your ministry is a mirror of who you are. It's going to reflect you, your strengths, and your weaknesses for better or for worse. And so we should strive to be holistically healthy in every area of our life. And so in this episode, I share about how I try to take care of my body, soul, mind, and spirit, and talk about a lot of the practical ways of doing that and how you can do that as well in your life. You'll also hear in this episode about the mentorship that I'm offering, the 10-week worship leader mentorship, where I'm taking a small group of worship leaders through 10 weeks of high-intensity training and development so that they can just really rock their ministry. And so if you are feeling stuck or in need of assistance or help, I would encourage you to apply for the next mentorship. We're probably going to be doing it in February 2021. You're listening right now. We're already right in the middle of it, but you can jump into the next mentorship next February. And so go ahead and apply. You can go to worshipministrytraining.com/mentor. That's worshipministrytraining.com/MENTOR. Okay, with that said, let's talk about being healthy and let's hear Casey's interview with me.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with us today. I want you to just go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, what do you do now? Just, you got the floor, man. You take it.
Thanks, Casey. Yeah, man. And I'm excited for you to be starting this podcast and this video channel that you're starting. I think you're going to bless a lot of people. I know you're going to bless a lot of people. And I just think we need more godly voices in this space serving people. So I'm excited for all that God has for you. And I know it's going to be awesome. So thanks for having me. And who am I? What am I doing? My name's Alex Infiegin. I'm 34 years old. I live in Los Angeles, California. I serve as the worship pastor of a large church called Calvary Chapel South Bay, and just maybe 15 minutes south of Los Angeles Airport, if anybody knows where that is. And what do? I lead worship most weeks, and I lead lots of teams of volunteers throughout our church. We have multiple venues and multiple services and different venues for different purposes. So I oversee that giant herd of cats called volunteers and try to point them in the right direction, try to make sure people are spiritually healthy and musically excellent and serve the Lord with an upright heart and skillful hands. And so that's my role. But lately with the COVID stuff, I've been doing a ton of creative communication for web and social and all of our email platforms and all that. So my role has shifted a lot. So I don't even know who I am anymore, but, and besides local church ministry, like Casey said, I have a podcast called Worship Ministry Training Podcast and a website with a bunch of free resources for worship leaders. And so I just love getting to serve people, help people, encourage people. And, who am I? I'm nobody, but the Lord likes to use nobodies. So there you go.
That's awesome, man. As we really talk in the Local Worship Project, what our whole project's about is equipping, training, and uniting local worship leaders with each other. And part of that training really comes out with just, again, how do you live healthy? And you do this really practical thing with how do you play the bass or how do you do a rehearsal night? And there's so many gems of episodes that you have. But for you, when you're thinking about practically, how do you live a healthy life as a worship leader? You've moved a lot, you've got a family, you're juggling a lot of balls before COVID. And now during COVID, it's even crazier with this communication stuff. So what does practically a healthy habit look like for a worship leader today?
Yeah, well, I will start by saying that I don't have it all figured out and that it's very hard. I don't know how you feel, Casey, but I feel it's very hard to live a completely balanced life. I don't think there is such a thing. I've heard somebody say this once, and I really like the word picture, but balance is just what you swing through as you swing from one extreme to the next. And like you just pass through balance for a little window of time and then you know.
Oh yeah. So like kind of like those little pendulum things on your desk. So
right. Yeah, exactly. But we're always trying to be balanced, and it is hard. I mean, think about it. It's hard to be physically fit and healthy and to eat healthy and to exercise regularly. It's hard to maintain a regular, disciplined, focused time with the Lord that stays authentic and refreshing. It's hard to, make sure you're connecting with your spouse or your children. It's hard to lead your ministry. Like nothing is easy. God didn't design life to be easy. Anything worth doing is usually hard. And so I just want to start by confessing that and affirming any worship leaders who are feeling discouraged because like they feel out of balance. It's hard, but the key is that it's worth it. And we need to fight for healthy habits, healthy rhythms. Casey, I don't know if you want me to share what healthy habits I have, or if you want me to share some of the things that the worship leaders should be focusing on to be healthy. What would you like me to lean into here?
I think what would be great is first kind of looking into the focus of it. And I'd love to get around to how you model that in your own life, and when are some of the times that you've seen it just, this is it. I found balance as I've swung through the pendulum kind of effect there. But for right now, I think it'd be good to start out with just understanding the concept, as a leader. So what are some healthy mentality to have?
Yeah. So I think a lot of worship leaders focus on the things that excite them. So maybe it's music, maybe it's creativity, maybe it's standing on stage and singing your favorite song, or developing amazing lighting, for your church or whatever. Like everybody has their little favorite pet project. But I think a healthy worship leader has just some central, simple focuses that they are always thinking about. So I would say a healthy worship leader is always focusing on the Lord. And I know that sounds stupid, but like I said, so many worship leaders, and I see this a lot in the younger worship leaders, like their focus is the music. All they care about are the latest songs, or, the coolest new bands, or the coolest fashion or whatever. And I'm sorry, we're not fashionistas, we're not rock stars, we're not even artists, we're church leaders, right? And so like a healthy worship leader, his focus is on the Lord and on spending time in the Lord's word and on growing in the things of God and fighting for a godly life. So that's one area that I think a healthy worship leader should be focusing on, obviously, is just regular, committed time set aside to be in the Lord's presence. The other one, if they have a family, would be that they're focusing on their family, because I think a lot of us get it out of order, where I put the church first and then my family second. Sometimes I put the church before the Lord and then my family's third. But, God says we're supposed to care for, shepherd, serve our families first. They are our first ministry. And a lot of times, I think I have an episode, I don't know when this is going to go live, but I have an episode with Paul Balash coming out July 1st, where we talk about how so many worship leaders lose their ministries because they first lost their family. So it's like you can't get the order backwards. It's got to be Lord first, family second, and then your ministry third. So for me, I think what that means is, and again, I struggle with this because I like to work, I'm a workaholic, but my family shouldn't be getting my leftovers. I shouldn't come home drained to my family. I should be serving my family with as much vigor as I'm serving somebody after a church service who needs prayer. Like when that person steps up with a need, I'm right there to meet them. Well, why don't I do the same thing when my wife has a need, And so I think family is really, has to be focused if you have a family. And then the last area of focus, I think, of a healthy worship leader is their team, that they're focused on their team, meaning they're caring for their team members. They're connecting with their team members, texting, calling, checking in. Hey, you want to grab coffee? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how can I be praying for you? You're encouraging your team. So you're trying to cause each member to grow in the Lord and in their craft and in their calling. And then also you're exhorting them. So you're having what I would call difficult conversations with them, or, hey, this isn't okay, what I'm seeing in your life, And so the Lord, the family of the worship leader, and then the team of the worship leader, I think those healthy worship leaders are focused on those areas first, and then music and lighting and stage design, that all comes after those three things.
That's so good. I'm writing it down, right? Because that's just good for me to remember and to keep in my mentality just as I go. You're ministering to the Lord when you're spending time with him. And that's something that I, for the first 5 years of leading in ministry, just did not get that concept, that as a royal priest in the priesthood, I didn't understand that one of the key duties of a priest is to minister to the Lord. And that was huge for me. So when we worship, we're ministering to God. And when we do that privately, we're ministering to God. So that is my ministry. My family, man, that's my first ministry other than God, is I've got a wife, I've got several kids that are very little. And it's really hard to balance work here, because I'm kind of like you. I'm like a workaholic too. If you let me be, I will go nuts with working. But with my family, trying to keep them centered, it's so hard. Trying to work out of that relationship. When you do it well, everything around you seems to make sense. When you don't do it well, nothing makes sense. You're feeling pulled constantly. And having that mentality is fantastic, because then that's what helps you treat your team members so well, because you know how to do it in your more important relationships first, right? You're kind of working out inside the Lord, my spouse, my kids, and then out from there is going to be the other people that I've been learning how to have a relationship the right way, so that when I'm giving them my relationship, giving them my attention and my time and ministering to them, it's the right way and the appropriate way. Because if you put those things out of order, all sorts of weird stuff can start happening with inappropriate behavior and all sorts of weird stuff. But when you work out from that inside out, it's pretty cool. And you've got some stuff about that too.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, Casey, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an overflow. So if you're going and spending time with the Lord and filling up with his infinite love for you, then I'm not a nice person when I don't spend time with the Lord. I'm grumpy, I'm short, I'm, snappy, I'm critical of others. But when I spend that time with the Lord, then man, I see my wife in the morning, I give her the biggest hug and kiss. I love her so much. And then my kids get my best, and then my team gets my best, So I think we have to start there. And I'm just too unkind of a person without the Lord. And so I need him to, fill me every day. So it's got to start there.
That's exactly right. That's the most practical way that I can look at why you do your daily devotional time with God, why you live with him in your mindset first. And when I don't do it, I'm like you, I'm grumpy. I'm kind of isolated by myself, and I'm just, get away from me. If you're talking to me, I'm kind of crabby and not aware of it. And so it is that overflow. But I mean, we're talking about that stuff. Is there anything else, when it comes to, this prioritizing the Lord, your family, and your team that you want to go over before we walk into some practical habits and steps?
No, I could say that it's easy to understand why we tend to put the people at church above our own family. And that's just because our family has needs. They see us at our worst. They don't cheer for us the people do after service or whatever. So it's just, checking the motive and being aware of flattery and being aware of just who am I really serving? Am I serving myself by getting these pats on the back and aiming for more pats on the back? Or am I serving people out of just a pure heart? And if that's the case, then serving my family will be easy when my kids need their diapers changed and my wife needs me to do, 18 things around the house. I won't complain about it on my day off because I just want to serve her and serve people, So that's the last thing I would say about that.
That's great. I feel you on all that stuff. Let's get into this habitual stuff. So let me start by asking, what was the best time of life for you, the best season where you felt like you were just in the zone with all of these healthy habits? And then what did that look like? For a worship leader, sometimes they start on Sunday, but for me, it's starting on Monday. What does that look like walking through the week with some healthy habits in mind?
Sure. Well, I can tell you the best time when I felt like everything was firing on all cylinders was recently, pre-COVID, like the few months leading up to COVID, like everything was dialed in, and I was like, I had great boundaries, and everything was in its place, and I was consistent in all the areas of health that you need to be as a human being. And then COVID hit, and like it all, melted away into nothing. And now I'm just a heaping pile of mess, no, it's not that bad, but it is more of a struggle. So let me tell you a little bit about what it looks like, or maybe what the habits are for me. Again, this is just my experience. Everyone might have a different experience, but I think if you're going to be healthy, I think you have to be holistically healthy. I think Jesus came to bring perfect shalom, like wholeness. And that's spiritual wholeness, but it's physical wholeness. It's, it's everything. It's our whole mind, body, soul, strength put together, who we are as humans. He wants us to live an abundant life, right? And so that means I need to have healthy habits in every area of my life. And so I think there are some just like key ones, which is like daily scripture reading and prayer. And we can go into details about all these if you want, but daily scripture reading and prayer, physical exercise, at least 4 to 5 times a week, right? Like you got to get sweaty, got to get your heart rate up, take care of your body because your brain is part of your body, and you're just one whole integrated human. So that, and then weekly Sabbath. This is probably the biggest struggle for me, but when I was in a good rhythm, it was very life-giving. Good boundaries with technology, and then mental fuel. I think a good habit for a leader is mental fuel. So I can break each one of those down if you want, because there's a lot in there.
Yeah. So let's start with physical health. Some people just totally underestimate this, including myself, and I actually had this run in. I was starting to do this because COVID's happening. Like I'm not even healthy physically. So I started working out, and then I got something called rhabdomyolysis or something like that. And I was in the hospital for like 2.5 weeks, but I was just done. And I couldn't get any strength back from this. And basically, like there's something that's in your blood called CPK that rises when you work out, and it's just giving you that toxins in your muscles as they're breaking down. They're normally supposed to be around 100 for a normal Caucasian male like myself. They raise to about 500 when you do a heavy workout. Mine was at about 80,000 when I hit the hospital. Wow. So I was like swollen and couldn't move. Like it was painful. And they just had me on IV for like a week just in a bed. But that's what happened when I try to get physically healthy, right? So like, when do I do that again? How do I do it in a healthy way? Wow. So for me, I mean, it's the same question. How do I do that 4 or 5 times a week? I get that. How do you do that in a healthy way? Dig into it a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you're well and you recovered, praise God. But I mean, Casey, can I ask you, were you any good to anybody when you were physically sick?
Absolutely not. That's a great question.
Absolutely not. And I think that's the point, right? Is like, we have to take care of ourselves if we're going to take care of others. Like we have to be full of energy and full of life and full of the things that the Lord wants us to be full of in order to give to others. And like, if we don't take care of ourselves, then we're useless to everybody else. And so physically, for me, I think my biggest struggle is eating. I don't eat very healthy. I eat healthy, but I eat too much. Okay. I just eat too much because I love putting food in my mouth. It's just the most joyous occasion. It's probably because I'm Armenian and it's like Armenians love food. But so for me, that's the hard struggle. But like exercise, I do very regularly, 5 days a week. I just have a rule. It's pretty easy, Casey. It doesn't matter what my exercise is, but it has to be at least 30 minutes and I have to be sweaty when I'm done. If I'm not sweaty when I'm done, it doesn't count. So there's like some apps like the 7-minute workout app. It's just called 7. I love that. If you do 3 of those, you're like done for the day. Go for a 30-minute run. You're pretty sweaty at the end of that. Go for like a high intensity bike ride, that 30 minutes of that, so jump rope for 30 minutes, whatever it is. But like between 30 minutes and an hour of exercise 5 days a week, like your heart's going to be healthy. You're going to sleep better at night, and sleep is important too. I don't get enough sleep probably, but they like literally your body is recharging. So just physical exercise, eating right, and sleep. There's nothing hard about this habit. Now, if you want to talk about rest and Sabbath though, because that's kind of the opposite of working hard, we can talk about that, because that's something that I did a little bit of a study on that recently, because I, like you, work too hard, work too much, and I was never turning off. My wife and I have a photography business. I run a really large, busy ministry. I have the podcast. We launched an Amazon business that kind of failed. We have 2 kids. We have a house that always needs work. So it was like, man, we are so busy. And, I don't want to wear that as a badge of honor, because that's like the wrong thing to be prideful about. But pretty much I never really took a day off. And so and we were homeschooling our kids too. So I was helping with that. So it's just like insanity. So what we did is we learned about Sabbath, which I'll just give a little kind of summary of what I learned. Sabbath is about delight. Okay. It's about delighting. And it's about taking a break from the normal routines and rhythms of life and putting a pause on all the never ceasing responsibilities that are never going to go away. You're never going to get to the end of your to-do list. It's always going to keep perpetuating. So you just choose to take a break in the middle of it all and say, today I trust the Lord. Today I'm going to have fun. Today I'm going to eat bad food. If I eat good food all week, I'm going to eat bad food today. Today I'm going to watch a movie with my kids. Today I'm going to read a book. Anything that brings you enjoyment and fulfillment and like replenishment, you do that on Sabbath. So we started a thing called Free Friday, because for us Friday worked best. And so we just call it Free Friday. The kids don't have to clean up the house. We don't do our dishes. We don't take the trash out. We don't really cook. We make easy kind of food, and we do that. And I'm supposed to not answer emails. But again, with the whole COVID thing, it just blew that up. I lost that habit. But when I was doing that, I felt so good and so refreshed going into each week. And somebody said, Sabbath is not to rest from work, it's to rest for work. Like it gives you the fuel you need for your upcoming week, And I think that's a really helpful way to think about it, because I don't know about you, but I feel lazy when I'm not doing something productive. But my wife has to always remind me that it's actually productive to rest. Being rested is productive. When you're resting, your brain is in a different state. It's coming up with solutions to problems you probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. And you're able to just like replenish so that when you do hit the ground running, you're more effective, more efficient than just being drained and empty. So that's the exercise, and then the rest part of that.
Man, that's beautiful. I've been learning a lot about Sabbath this last year too, and that's what I've been coming to the same conclusion for. It's this delighting in God and Him delighting in you. So it's basically like, for me, the way I think of it is, whatever I enjoy doing, I'm going to do it with God today. Mm-hmm. And so we're just gonna, like with my dad, we would play baseball, so like, it's like playing baseball with my dad. We're both enjoying our time together because we're doing something we enjoy. And he's delighted in the fact that I'm enjoying time, this blessing that he's given me, life. He's given me the desire to do things and the talents of doing things. And when I'm doing those with him, it's just really cool, and it's pleasing to him, and it's delightful for both of us. And this idea of Sabbath providing life, that was another cool thing too, because if you look in Genesis, you see God blessing things, right? And he blesses the animals to procreate. He blesses the humans to procreate. He blesses the trees to procreate. And then he blesses Sabbath and nothing else. And so do you think there's maybe some kind of theme that goes on there of procreation, right? When it comes to what does Sabbath give you? Does it create life? I think so. I think Sabbath creates life in the rest of your week. And what I've heard is that it starts where you're kind of focused on trying to create Sabbath. And so you're working to make Sabbath happen. And then it starts when the flip switches, you start working out a Sabbath. And it's like every bit of life comes out of there. But you got to stop all these habits that keep you away from resting first. And I don't think I'm quite there yet.
Yeah. I mean, what does recreation come from? It comes from recreation. So yeah, it's like when you recreate, you are recreating, you are re-energizing, reinvigorating, and preparing yourself for whatever God has next for you. So those are the first two. Do you want me to talk about the last two that I mentioned?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Keep digging, man.
Yeah. Okay. So I think for me, good boundaries with technology has been so important. I think the smartphone is probably the worst invention of the last, since the history of the face of the earth, that's obviously like a bit of sarcasm, but I don't think it has made us smarter. It has not made us deeper. It has not made us better human beings. I think it has fragmented all of our tiny bit of focus that we ever had in the first place. And now none of us can really get any deep thinking done. I honestly think, Casey, that like people like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and Dostoevsky and these incredible deep thinkers, I think they're extinct. I think that generation of thinkers will never come back again because of technology. I think we have shorter attention spans than goldfish. Okay. And that's like a scientifically proven fact. That is scary. I know the feeling of wanting to constantly check my smartphone when I walk down the hallway because my brain is afraid of being bored. It's uncomfortable, right? And so I've had to put some boundaries in place in my life. I was addicted to my smartphone and I had to figure out how to get away from that. And so for a while, I just rocked like a BlackBerry. I switched from an iPhone to a BlackBerry, but then there were a couple apps like Planning Center that I actually needed on my phone. So I actually recently, don't hate me, I switched to an Android phone because Android phones you can customize. And I downloaded like a minimalistic launcher, which only has like 6 apps and it's just black and white. And it's like the 7 apps that I need on my phone. And like, it's just words. It's not even an icon. It's like super uninteresting to look at. And then I just keep my phone on Do Not Disturb and I use it as a tool. And it makes it hard for people to get a hold of me. That's true, but oh well. And then the other thing I learned is like keeping email off your phone is like a godsend. So email, the tiger lives in its cage. It's on the computer only. So the tiger can't come ripping out of the cage and rip your head off whenever it wants to. No, you go and you open the cage and you deal with your email. So that has been another huge benefit or a huge help to me is having some of those boundaries of the technology. And I also take it, I'm a little bit extreme, and that's just because I have such bad self-control. But like my wife, there's an app that she put on her phone that she can lock my phone whenever she wants. And actually every night at 9 p.m., my phone goes to sleep and I can't open it. I can't unlock it. And it won't open until 7:32 in the morning. I don't know why 7:32. I just picked that number. But at 7:32, it unlocks. So that means that like that morning time, if I wake up on time, is really dedicated to the Lord without me being even able to check my email or texts that have come in over the night. And so that's been really, really healthy for me. Maybe people don't need to be as extreme as I am, but I have bad self-control. So I have to do what I have to do.
Man, there is so much there. I mean, with technology. And so like for me, I just got to admit, I am still a slave to my device. I'm in the nice little Apple ecosystem too. That makes it super convenient to, as a worship leader, right? You justify these things. And so what I'm saying to myself is this makes my workflow just like this, right? I'm able to move. I'm able to go between, I can send people this on my phone, and then on the computer, I could do the same thing. It's all communicating together. It's beautiful. And man, what a scary, scary lie that is. Because there's so much truth to it. It's so much more convenient to work with your teams. And and so I'm paralyzed by that, I guess, that fear of dumping it. I think it's also, was looking into recently what it would cost to switch over to like a flip phone or something, a dumb phone. It's about the same. And so it
doesn't really work. And I'll tell you why, because there is a level of apps, because I've done the dumb phone thing. The BlackBerry was like a sort of hybrid version because you could still send like pictures and you could navigate and stuff like that. But the dumb phone thing, it's not realistic. I mean, some people make it work, but like if you're over a group of people, it's very hard to make that work. And so I think, and I don't think it necessarily has to be that you switch to Android, or I'm not saying anybody needs to do anything. I'm just saying, is the smartphone and the constant connection actually making you more effective? Is it actually making you more productive? I doubt it. I bet you're so fragmented that it takes you 10 times longer to do one task than if not you, Casey, personally, but just in general, people, I bet you it takes you longer. I bet you do. So what I'm trying to learn how to do as I'm juggling more and more in my life is I want to do the task at the right time, in the right way to get the right result. So I want it to be effective, efficient, and I want it to be fast. I want to do it fast and I want to do it well. And just constantly bouncing between tasks is an impossible way to do anything fast or well. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's just been something for me that one thing that has helped me so much, Casey, is this beautiful planner that I actually left at home today. It's called the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. And it's a paper planner. It's a physical book. They send you 4 per year. It goes in quarters. And the fact that you sit down, so I still use digital. I have a digital task manager. I have a digital calendar. But then every Sunday night, I sit down and I map out my entire week on paper. And then each day I go take from that master list and map out each day. And I come up with my big priorities for each day, and working off of that instead of like working off of my phone and then getting a text message and then getting distracted by that text message and this and that. Like, oh, and I'm not on social either. Like, you've been trying to communicate to me through Facebook. Like my wife, she manages my Facebook for me. Like I don't have Instagram. Well, I do, but I don't use it on my phone. I have somebody else who posts for me. So you know why, Casey? It's not because I'm better than people. It's just because I want my life to count for something. And I don't think when I get to heaven, God's going to say, hey, good job wasting 8 hours a day on Instagram. Like he's never going to say that to anybody. He's going to say, what did you do with the one precious life that I gave you? And if I say, oh Lord, I spent most of it doing things you want, but I also wasted 6 hours a day on social media. Like, I don't think he's going to be pleased. I'm not saying God is an angry God that hates us, but I'm just saying like he wants us to use this one precious life, Casey, my neighbor died last night. My dentist died last night, and somebody that we know decently well, their father died last night. 3 people died. Like, life on earth is short, and I don't want to squander it. And so that's why for me, I want to be the most effective version of myself possible, because I want to do something for the Lord. I want to use this life that he's given me. So that's why I'm kind of weird about like making sure I don't use technology poorly.
Yeah, I think so. Technology, and I've heard you talk about this before, and we actually do this in our church. We make sure that when we play, right? So like when we actually lead the congregation, we use things like tracks and click and things like that. But the rule is we can't be a slave to the technology. So whatever we have that can enhance what we're doing, it needs to be our tool to use and not the other way around. And so we're not going to become a slave to it and learn how to play with it to the point to where we forget how to play by ourselves. Most of the time we don't use anything, right? But it's because it can enhance or it can take away from our experience and actually participating in what's going on. I think that's kind of the same mentality here. Like when you've got so much automation going on in your life, you forget where you're at in the mix. Mm-hmm. And that technology can be helpful. It can really be an asset to you and your workflow and for your teams and all that stuff, communication. Or like you're saying, it scatters you so much that you're just taking forever to get anything done. And that I see the symptoms of everywhere in my life. And it's definitely because there's too many tools to use. There's too many ways to accomplish it instead of simplifying your life and being focused.
Right. And I think I was feeling extremely overwhelmed. I had my digital to-do list, like super dialed in, like reoccurring tasks on each day, doing the right things. But then I was kind of like a slave to my task list. Like it was telling me what to do. Whereas when I sit down in the morning with that paper journal, I'm being the one who's in control. I'm being proactive about my day and my time. And it helps me like write down the thing. And in the act of writing something down, it's proven like scientifically, you connect with it more and it better lodges into your brain and you have more of a sense of purpose and direction for your day. And so I highly recommend everybody get the Michael Hyatt Planner. I'm not paid to say that.
Well, I'm not either. So I'll clarify that.
Yeah.
And that's good.
The last habit that I mentioned earlier was mental fuel. So filling up our minds with good fruit-bearing information. So like books, podcasts, listening to things that are edifying, that are encouraging, that are going to help you grow. And then a part of mental fuel is downtime for reflection. So like that time in the mornings that you're like processing and praying, if we don't have mental margin to think, how are we supposed to lead? Because leaders have to be thought leaders, right? And leaders have to be learners. And so the last habit that I think is like vital to being a healthy worship leader is like, and we didn't even talk about daily scripture reading, did we? Maybe we did.
No,
but anyway,
kind of glossed over it.
Okay. Books and podcasts and learning. Leaders are learners. And so you have to be learning, you have to be growing, you have to be putting fuel into your mind, not just like trivial junk. Sorry, I'm so passionate.
So, I mean, when it comes to, I guess that's a good question. I mean, what is something that's been teaching you a lot lately, other than this journal and all that habit and stuff? Is there something that's maybe on like a reading list or something that, you're pumped about getting into right now?
I have a whole list of books about being a better manager that I want to buy and read because I've taken over the creative department at our church. Or it was given to me. I didn't take it over. It wasn't a hostile takeover, but I'm leading, a whole bunch of staff and all of their departments. And I want to be the best and most kind, caring, loving, and effective manager possible. So I have a whole bunch of books that I want to read. One book that I was telling you about earlier before we hit record that I love as a communicator, as a digital, marketing type person, like the book Story Brand by Donald Miller is something that I've learned a ton about, and how story is just such a great framework for communicating. And so that has no spiritual bearing whatsoever. So forgive me for the shallow answer, but you asked what I had been learning recently, and that's what I've been learning.
I think that's important too, though, to understand that self-development, like, I think I grew up in a way where if it wasn't written by a pastor or somebody like that, it was almost taboo to read it and to develop yourself, because it's like, but man, I think one of the biggest things that ever taught me anything in life was Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Like that was huge for me because it gave me purpose for the ministry. It gave me purpose for what I do in my family and how I live my day.
Right.
And it was, if I look at anything good is from God, right? When people have these genius ideas that are that simple, you can track where that is in the Bible, actually. And so you could see people discovering truth and wisdom about life. That's chokmah, right? In Proverbs, that's what wisdom is. It's knitted into the fabric of life that God created. And so people are going to discover that. They're going to stumble on it. And sometimes it's not a Christian who discovers it. So I think reading resources like that can sometimes just, it not only gives you that excitement about some new facet of understanding of what God has done, but it also helps you understand how people in the world really think about things too, so that you can communicate better with them as well and help point them to, oh, you know where that came from? Right here. It's really cool.
Yeah. And another book that was like that for me, for you, it was Simon Sinek's book. For me, it was Essentialism. Essentialism by Greg McKeown basically says, like, you have one life to live. Like, what is the core center of your life? And are you going to focus on doing that? And it was able to really take me from being all scattered. And I was doing a lot of songwriting, and I was going to Nashville and like starting to write with different people, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? I'm not that good of a writer. Like, should I invest my life into that? no, I should invest my life into the thing that I'm good at. And that's where I really focused in on worship ministry training and all that stuff. So
that's awesome. Now, I appreciate that, man. And we're getting kind of close here on time. So I want to go ahead and start giving you this last little time to talk. Thank you so much for clarifying on all those things. That is huge and hugely valuable, I think, for us to think through all of those facets on what health really is for a leader, and even for somebody who's just part of a team. This is helpful for us too. So this would be a good thing to share with teams, I think, as well. But the last question that I had for you is, at the Local Worship Project, again, what we're about is trying to equip, train, and unite local worship leaders with each other. So you mentioned a little while ago that you're kind of getting into this training for leadership and mentorship kind of deal that you're going to be presenting. What is it that you're doing right now that you can offer other worship leaders just some help and training and equipping them?
Yeah, thanks for asking. For 6 years, I've been training worship leaders through the podcast. And honestly, it's a selfish experiment to learn from the best people out there. So I get to talk to them and ask them whatever I want, which is like such a, genius move. I don't know who thought of that, but super love being able to learn myself, but also to offer that content to people. And I've been doing it for 6 years for free every month. There's like tons of free resources on my website, worshipministrytraining.com. And, the podcast, obviously, if you want to search in your podcast app. And that's my heart, is to give worship leaders the practical training tools that they need to succeed and in their calling, right? But now I am actually beginning to offer something it's a paid investment into yourself. So you're going to pay some money to invest into yourself in a more intentional way instead of just passively consuming content. So I'm offering a 10-week mentorship for worship leaders. And by the time this airs, I don't know when it's going live, Casey, but I'm guessing that the mentorship will already be started. Registration will be closed because it's actually starting this coming Monday, June 29th, 2020. So, but what it is it's basically I'm taking 10 to 20 worship leaders from around the world through a 10-week program that's going to teach you pretty much all the leadership and organizational principles you need in order to be a successful worship leader, worship pastor. It's kind of taking a hesitant, thrown in there worship leader and teaching them everything they need to know to be a confident worship pastor. So that's kind of the framework, and we're starting June 29th. But if people are interested and they want to apply, they can apply for the next mentorship, because we're going to be doing this probably on a somewhat regular basis. So they can go ahead and apply anyway. If they want to go to worshipministrytraining.com/mentor, they can do that and they can get signed up for the next one. So that's what we're offering right now.
That's exciting. I love the fact that you've put in so much time, like just providing so much free value to people right now. But I mean, this mentorship, if I can take anything of the gleaning that I've had over the last 4 years listening to your podcast and growing through the practical steps you've offered, this mentorship's just going to be on fire. It's going to be a fantastic resource for anybody who joins into it. So I will make sure that everybody has the ability to just go straight to those links on here and connect with you. If they want to connect with you, just have a conversation, maybe to learn more about it, other than just the website itself. Is there any kind of, you don't do a lot of social media. Is there anything they can get through your wife through to get in touch with you? How can people contact you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I think worshipministrytraining.com is the best central place because you can find all my social media stuff there. I do post to social media, but I don't really I don't check the inboxes or things like that. So if they want to contact me directly, they can just email me, alex@worshipministrytraining.com.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure I put all of that on there. Is there anything else that you want to say before you take off for today, Alex?
Everybody, whatever God has called you to do, He will equip you to do it, and He will help you to do it well as long as you are reliant on Him. And Casey, you're going to blow up on YouTube. I believe it. And thanks for having me on today.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you enjoyed it, pass it on to someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the podcast so that you can get the latest episodes for free every month. And I will see you next month for another helpful episode. God bless you guys.